With half of Has Been Hotel's second season already released, I knew I wanted to get a theory out as soon as possible. And what better character to tackle than the newest addition to the cast, Baxter. So, spoiler warning for what we know of Baxter so far, potentially for the rest of Has Been Season 2, and for Hell of a Boss as well. I talk a little bit about that too. This may be just a theory, but I could be correct in my deductions here. And you know what? I'm going to drop my theory first to hook you, and then present my findings that led me to my conclusions. I think Baxter isn't who he says he is. I think he has a secret agenda. He's working for someone else to get dirt on Charlie, Lucifer, and the most powerful overlords, as well as getting as much info as possible on what they are all doing. But his boss, the leader behind this whole operation, is not who you think. No, it's not Vox. So for those who may not know, Baxter is this little guy here. He's a mad scientist who has decided to stay at the hotel, conducting research on his theory regarding rehabilitation and redemption. We, as the audience, know that Charlie is correct and that redemption is possible. But Baxter was not present for the last season, and so he does not believe. Now, I love Baxter's character, but I keep getting some weird vibes from him. For starters, we see him in the background of episode 1 of season 2 as he's presumably on his way to the hotel, while Katie and Tom have their news segment for the viewers. Now, maybe this is just me, but if I was introducing a new character who's interested in the main setting of the show, I'd show him at least turning toward the TV during the broadcast to show he's interested in the situation, you know? Just like what Viv did with Alistair in the pilot. Instead, Baxter just walks on by without acknowledging anything. This tells me that he is already aware of the info we are being given, and that he is on some sort of mission. Later, in episode 3 of season 2, titled Has Been Hotel Behind Closed Doors, he tells Cherry how he and Penchas used to work together, looking to become overlords themselves. He also apparently works for Vox Tech. Now, Cherry was threatening him for information, so he very well could have been lying. But if he's telling the truth, that is some interesting information. Now let's look at his character design itself. He's based off of an anglerfish. It is a really cool design, and he has arguably had the most glow up from original concept to final product, compared to all of Viv's other characters. When looking at the OG designs, we can see a logical progression from original designs to what they are today. Alistair has kept a similar design, same color patterns, and kept the cane. Charlie kept a similar hairstyle, and while the colors have changed a bit, we see her retain the red eyes when she channels her demon form. Vaggie has kept a similar dress style and bow. Angel is basically the same, just more refined. Husk and Nifty have not changed much either. But Baxter, just look at this glow up. He was originally much more humanoid, but Viv has confirmed that the redesign was mainly due to his resemblance to Alistair and another character of hers from a past project, and she wanted more height variations. Fair enough, right? Also, when asked about Baxter's backstory, Viv did say that he was a sinner, but she also mentioned she didn't know what to do with him, and her answer seemed very non-committal. Here's the clip.
Sorry, one more question / request. Did Baxter die on the Titanic?
I don't really know anymore. That was like kind of the original one, but I don't know how much I want to tie real world events into
He was
like
standing
the show.
on the iceberg when the Titanic.
Yeah, he was studying the iceberg and he got fucking crushed by the boat. That's how he died.
He's
No.
canonically that guy that falls off and hits like the big
The
thing in the
propeller.
middle.
He
The guy
hits
that
the
falls off that
propeller.
thing. That's the best Titanic character. If he did die on the Titanic, just make sure he's that guy.
Alright,
Like-
if he died, he's the guy from the movie that hits the propeller
Yeah,
on the
that
way
thing
down.
in the middle.
Oh no. But no, I
Is
know.
there like a gif of that
I
somewhere
know
online? I feel like that
Oh,
would be
yes,
like
of
a
course.
gif that
Everyone-
I use a lot.
Everyone talks about that guy. If he did die on a boat though, like his whole design is like designed of like a big old timey like 1910s boat. So like, you know, time period and thematically, it makes sense to be the Titanic. But I'm not saying it's the Titanic anymore just because like that was a real event and people did actually die. And there were a lot of undocumented people who died on the Titanic, but still, it feels kind of weird.
He was on the USS Farfor.
He was on the fictional equivalent of the Titanic, I guess.
Now, this stream happened 6 years ago, so plenty of time to flesh out a different backstory. Now, I also love all the unique character designs for the Sinners, but I would say Baxter resembles more closely to the Hellborn characters, specifically the fish folk from the Envy Ring. We've seen fish folk in both shows, but aside from Leviathan briefly and a few background characters, the majority we have seen are goons and lackeys, most working under Crimson, the mafia boss and father to Moxie. So here's my theory. I think it will be revealed, maybe at the end of this season, that Baxter is actually a Hellborn citizen working under Crimson to gather dirt on the royal family and spy on them, and the other powerful overlords who could pose a threat. I think Crimson had originally sent Baxter to integrate with the Sinners and rise up in their ranks. So, Baxter realizes his best way to do so is to lean into what he's good at, science. He realizes becoming an overlord is the best way to mingle with them, so he teams up with a fellow scientist, Penchus, to start making a name for himself. Now, I initially thought only Sinners could become overlords, but according to the fandom wiki page, while it is heavily implied that overlords can only be Sinners, we don't actually have any in-universe confirmation. And two characters who have yet to be in the show, Frederick and Bethesda von Eldridge, are described in the wiki as both Hellborn demons and overlords. Or worst comes to worst, maybe Baxter just doesn't know that non-Sinners cannot be overlords, if that is the case. Anyway, from Baxter's tale in episode 3, the two attempt to impress Zestiel, which works out in Baxter's favor and gets him in closer with Vox, the overlord that would allow him to keep his scientist cover present. We see Baxter in a brief moment in season 1, so we know that this has been going on for a while. Then, Charlie puts a target on her back. Crimson hears about the hotel, and at first doesn't think much of it due to the laughable news segment from the pilot. In the original Hell of a Boss pilot, there is a blink and you miss it moment, where Luna is watching the news broadcast where Charlie is advertising the hotel. While this was removed from the canon remake of the pilot, probably because the Amazon deal hadn't been finalized when that was in production, and thus the characters could not cross over legally, this still implies that news coming from Pentagram City is not confined to the city limits. Other places in Hell can tune into the news. So Crimson absolutely could have seen this original broadcast and only realized Charlie could be a threat as well when it's broadcast across Hell that Charlie and her friends managed to kill Adam. Perhaps Baxter, after seeing the broadcast at the end of Season 1, as we see here, goes on to contact his boss. Then, Crimson orders him to get close with the next big potential threat to his plan, the Has-Been Hotel. Baxter heads over, completely ignoring the news broadcast that I mentioned earlier because he is on a mission, and now here we are, caught up in the timeline where the show is currently at. Why else would Baxter leave the comfort of his VoxTech lab, where he presumably would have a lot more equipment for his experiments? It's because science isn't his top priority. Now, we know that Crimson has beef with Blitz, and Hell of a Boss left off with Blitz being seen as some sort of hero amongst the imps. Crimson, being a mafia boss, certainly would not take that too well. So it's safe to assume he'd not only want to gain any sort of upper hand he could, but also have a finger in every pie, you know? He wants to gather dirt for blackmail and gather connections. We have already seen this behavior in the Hell of a Boss Season 2 episode, Oops, when Stryker captures both Blitz and Fizz for Crimson, and Crimson's immediate response is to hold them captive and make demands. So, what if Crimson has been gathering dirt on the Has-Been Hotel characters in the background this whole time through Baxter? And hell, what if most, if not all, of the fishfolk background characters we have seen in Has-Been Hotel are all part of Crimson's network of spies as well? But there's a bit more to it as well. Legal deals and negotiations can take much longer than we are aware of behind the scenes. So I'm willing to bet There were two plans for Baxter while negotiations were taking place. Plan A, if the deal falls through, then he's a sinner who questions the logistics of the hotel and redemption. And Plan B, if the deal is a success, well then he's working for Crimson and serves as a logical way to cross over the shows further down the line. Maybe Charlie gets through to him at some point and he renounces his allegiance to Crimson or something, which would also provide tension for further seasons. The negotiations were probably all taken care of and confirmed long before we were informed of them, so there would have been more than enough time to tweak Baxter's character, ever so slightly. Now, this is where I initially planned to end the video, but one of my best friends and reoccurring creature of the channel, a little lost in the sauce, had a theory of his own and wanted to tack it on to the end of this video as well. So I'm gonna send the mic over to him. Alright, take it away.
Thank you, Bowtie. I have a theory that popped into my mind the moment I saw the big reveal with Rosie. It kinda had me like...
Here I come. Oh.
So, stay with me. I play a lot of strategy games. Nowadays, a lot of Paradox games. And there's this strat that I like to use. Hold on, stay with me. This connects to Hasbin. Just sit down and give me a moment. So I'm using Stellaris as an example here, but most of these games kind of run on a similar set of logic, so pick your poison. So with that out of the way, this shit is mine. This is the core of my shit, my people live here, my primary unit producing buildings are here, and all is right in these worlds here. Now let me introduce you to the second part of this example. These guys are assholes. They probably sacrifice kids, their gods are weird, everything, they walk on the opposite side of the road, whichever side you happen to be on. Yeah, they're on the opposite. Whatever you believe, they happen to believe the opposite. If you don't like pineapple on pizza, they love that stuff. If you like pineapple on pizza, they hate you for it. Whatever you happen to like, those guys over there, these guys over here are the antithesis. Long story short, they're bastards. But they're not completely unreasonable. They run on somewhat of line of logic. If you're too far, they won't beef. You know, stuff like that. Now, we could share a border and just fight over the same scrap of territory for all of fucking time, or can outsource beefing with these guys to a vassal. Different games call this a different thing. You know, you got puppets, you got vassals, sister republics, you know, stuff like that. Bottom line, you own this country. Keep them weak enough that if they're getting a little out of line, you just tip them over, they're done. Yet strong enough that they don't just collapse on their own, and also allowing them to maintain your previous beef. But most importantly, they need loyalty. They need to be your bitch for these strats to work. Now, why would I give up free territory? Well, if you check the map here, these bastards can't beef with me, or at least it'll be a little bit harder to, because now they gotta get through this area, and if these guys are enough of bastards themselves, well, now it's not your problem. That's right, my shit stays safe, the ops stay mad, and the people like being independent, so depending on the game and circumstances, the vassal will be happy as well. See the dynamic here? Yep, that's right, my theory is that Alistair is that bitch. Seriously, rewatch season 1. No one important ever actually references Cannibal Town, aside from the people that are directly associated or, you know, temporary allies. This allows Rosie to operate her little fiefdom virtually unbothered by any of the major players of Hell. Alistair keeps his beef, Vox is busy, and Rosie gets to have her shit completely uncontested. So who knows, Rosie could just be a Paradox gamer for all we know. But you know, that's just a bit of a theory there. It's the first thing that came to mind when I saw that reveal. It's like, holy shit, that makes sense. I've seen this strat before. Anyway, that's my time. Sauce out.
Well, there you have it. 2 fun theories for y'all to ponder. But leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and trust us with your fan theories.